UFC 310 Pantoja versus Asakura goes down this weekend, the final pay-per-view of the year 2024. Not my favorite main event, as we all know. Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, was going to headline this card against Shavkat Rakhmanov, which was going to be a really huge fight, exciting fight, interesting fight. That was the fight I was excited for. And we have like Ian Machado Garry versus Shavkat here instead, which could be the main event. Because that's the real main event. That's the fight everyone's talking about. But Dana chose to be an idiot. Yeah, Dana, if you're watching, fuck you for not making that the main event. But anyway, yeah, he didn't make it for the interim title and the main event, so we got this shit instead. I mean, oh, sorry about that. I mean, this fight's entertaining. Pantoja Asakura should be a good fight, just marketing wise. If the UFC was smart, they would not go with flyweights, a division that no one really cares about that much. Also with a champion who's not the most marketable. I mean, Pantoja has like what 280k followers on Instagram, so I know that means nothing, but I just don't want this fight leading one of the best pay-per-views of the year. But regardless, can't complain. I mean, I did complain, but I'm gonna watch anyway, and I'm gonna talk about these fights anyway, because why not, right? I'm obviously gonna talk about the main event, the co-main, the entire main card as a whole. Also, why the hell is Kron Gracie on the main card over Sterling Evloev? I can kind of understand Nate Landwehr, Duho Choi. That should be a banger. But, I mean, you got Reyes, Smith, Luque on here. Two out of these three fights right here on the prelims arguably could be on the main card. But I get it. It's ESPN. The UFC's trying to promote their prelims and get people watching. So it makes sense. But yeah, I'm going to talk about the main prelims, not like the Fight Pass prelims. I already covered Wyman Anders in another video, and I don't really care to talk about these other fights. I mean, to get out of the way, I'll say I think Chase Hooper is going to beat Clay Guida. I think Max Griffin is going to beat Michael Chiesa. Maybe John. I don't really care. Again, I don't care about these fights. Sorry, I know I sound like a casual, but I'm just not going to try to act like... I mean, I'm a hardcore fan, but I did not care to do like tape study on these fights. I'm mainly passionate about the ESPN prelims and the main cards. So I'm going to start with Randy Brown versus Bryan battle, which this should be a good fight. I think Randy Brown is being highly slept on in this fight. I think he has advantages in terms of his height and his reach. He's got very unorthodox striking. Randy Brown is very difficult to deal with on the feet. And he's also very well rounded. The guy can grapple too. He can go for takedowns. He has submissions. But I will say Bryan Battle has him beat in that area in terms of the grappling. I feel like he has the advantage when it comes to grappling. And striking, maybe I'll say like the inside fighting. I will lean that the way of Bryan Battle. I just want to look at like their stats right now. Wow, actually Randy Brown has like more like higher takedown defense, higher takedown accuracy. I don't know. I've watched their fights, and I mean both can grapple well. But I don't know why my intuition is telling me to go with Bryan Battle to win this fight. This isn't really my strongest breakdown, but I just feel like Battle, this is his fight to win. But I won't be surprised if Randy Brown won. I'm going to say Bryan Battle will win a close decision in this fight. I think he'll probably have more, he might land the more damaging shots. He might land the more powerful shots. I feel like he has a bit of a power advantage, but Randy Brown, he does have that experience. He does have multiple different ways he could win, so you can't sleep on Randy Brown, but I'm going to say Battle, UD or SD. And then Mosvar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. Now, this fight should be on the main card. This is a fight I'm like super excited for. This is Aljamain Sterling's second fight in the featherweight division, not bantamweight, second featherweight fight. And I mean, he looked really good in his last fight against Calvin Kattar. I know Kattar was washed, coming off a bad knee injury, but we can't discredit how great Sterling looked in that fight. Was it the most entertaining performance? No, but he dominated Kattar. And we've never seen Kattar get completely spanked in the grappling like that ever in his career. I feel like Aljo at featherweight is refreshed. He doesn't have to cut that much weight anymore, so he's not depleted. So Aljo at featherweight is basically fighting to his full potential. He's more filled in, more physically stronger, and I think his wrestling is way more effective at featherweight than it was in the bantamweight division. So it might be harder to defend featherweight Aljo's takedowns as opposed to bantamweight Aljo's. Aljamain Sterling is also very well rounded. Not only is his wrestling good, but we know his jiu-jitsu's good. He's got very dangerous submissions. He is dangerous from off his back, especially within his guard. But I mean, he's more dangerous when he can get your back and, backpack you, body triangle you. That's like his go-to submission, the rear naked choke. But I mean, he can sub you from his guard as well, which makes this fight interesting because Evloev, that's his style. He's got that Dagestani wrestling style. I don't think Evloev is Dagestani, is he? I don't think so, but he is Russian. He's got that Russian wrestling. But Aljo can also strike. He's no slouch on the feet. I know he gets a little bit of flack for being sloppy, but he's very awkward. He's unorthodox, and he's effective. He's got high volume, and he's also very fast and athletic. He's got very good kicks. He's very good at mixing up his attacks on the feet. I will say, striking-wise, he's more versatile than Evloev, and he's more of a threat than Evloev when it comes to his finishing ability on the ground with ground and pound and subs. Whereas Evloev, high-level wrestler, not really a finisher, though. Most of his wins in the UFC are by decisions. I don't remember the last time this dude has ever got a finish. But he is a good wrestler. I will say he's a better wrestler than Aljo, but I don't think his BJJ is better. Striking-wise, I think Evloev kind of is improving in his stand-up a little bit. I am noticing his striking is getting a little bit better. He did outstrike Dan Ige. I feel like he's kind of fine-tuning his boxing a bit more. His fundamentals are better. So I will say he might hold a boxing advantage over Aljamain Sterling. Like in punching range, punch for punch, I will say Evloev is better, but I think Aljo is faster than him. He'll have that bantamweight speed in the featherweight division, plus that bantamweight skill. I think he'll have more tools on the feet as well. So I think, honestly, Aljo's best chance might actually be in the striking against Mosvar Evloev. Not to say it's like that's his clearest path to victory, but I feel like he could cause Mosvar a lot of issues standing. But one thing I could point out here, though, is Evloev does have good knees, good flying knees as well. We've seen him utilize them effectively against Dan Ige, and sometimes when Aljo is shooting for takedowns, he does leave his chin open to be countered by knees. That's how Bryce caught him, so I do kind of worry for Aljo in that aspect. Very, very tough matchup to call. It's a close fight on paper. Really high-level grappling matchup here. And I will say this is this is probably the toughest fight you could give him at featherweight. Like outside of Volk or Ilya the champion or Diego Lopez, Evloev is like that next biggest test that's going to really tell us like where Aljo stands in this division. Like, is he really a threat to the title? Because if he can go out there and dominate Mosvar Evloev, if he can go out there, not only outstrike him, if he beats Evloev at his own game, the wrestling, because not many people can mess with Evloev in that department, then these featherweights better watch out. If you can out-grapple Evloev, you can out-grapple anybody. But Aljo is, he's getting up there in age as well, 35 years old. I know black don't really crack when it comes to age. Black athletes usually age like wine. Still, you gotta consider Aljamain Sterling is 35, the clock is ticking, Evloev does have the youth on his side, so I'm going to say, I feel like Evloev kind of has plot armor on his side. It's like there are certain fights where I feel like he should lose, but he wins anyway. Like that last fight he had with Allen. I felt Allen should have beaten him. I picked Allen to win, and he beat him. So you know what? I'm going to say Evloev is going to win this fight by a competitive decision. I think Aljamain is going to do very well. I don't think he'll dominate Aljo because, like I said, I think Aljo is going to have a lot of success in the striking. And I think Aljo might be the first opponent Evloev will have faced who will actually willingly and frequently shoot a lot of takedowns on Mosvar. Usually, Mosvar's opponents stay away from wrestling him because they don't want to get in those like long-ended wrestling exchanges with Evloev, and taking him down will be hard. But Aljo was willing to take down, or was willing to challenge the wrestling of Henry Cejudo, who was an Olympic-level wrestler. He kept shooting takedowns against Peter Yan, and he was able to get him down a couple of times in the rematch and control his back. He spammed takedowns on Rivera, who's known for great takedown defense. So I could see him really pursuing takedowns, even if he can't get them. But I think Evloev will be able to defend them. And I think, I think if anyone in this fight is going to be able to succeed with the wrestling, it's going to be Mosvar. And that's why I think he's going to win. It might be like a decision where like people are going to say Aljo should have won because he landed the more significant strikes or he won more exchanges on the feet, but couldn't really, stop the takedowns. That might be the issue of this fight. So I'm going to say Evloev kind of gets outstruck, out-volumed a little bit, but is able to take down Aljamain Sterling, but he's not going to like sit in his guard where Aljo can like whip up an armbar or like a triangle. I feel like he's going to have the proper positional awareness to stay out of danger on the ground, maybe half guard camp him, maybe go for takedowns where it's like he will sort of elevate up to Aljo's upper body and try to drag him on all fours and get to his back. I think we're going to see like a lot of crazy scrambles in this fight. But yeah, I'm going to say Evloev is going to kind of plot armor his way to a kind of a sketchy decision, if you will, like his last fight. Yeah, I'm going to say Evloev will probably win by split decision, and then Aljo after is going to like complain saying, I was robbed, I should have won. But you know what? Aljo's stock doesn't drop with a loss to Evloev if the way he loses the way I think he will. If it's a close decision, back and forth fight, I don't think his stock drops. But I mean, it's definitely the best case scenario for Aljo in his career if he can win. Because if he does win, then a title shot could be on the line. If he loses, it kind of sets him back a little bit far, and then he's not going to get any big opportunities anymore at the featherweight division. But really close fight, high-level grappling matchup. Can't wait to see how this unfolds. But yeah, I'm going to say a Mosvar decision. Plot armor decision in a fight where he should have lost. A matchup where Aljo should win, but doesn't win, if that makes sense. And now moving up to the second last fight of the prelims, Vincente Luque versus Thembo Gorimbo. Man, I really don't know. It's hard to call because Vincente Luque is so washed up. It's not even funny. He's not the same beast that he used to be. Pre-Jeff Neal, Vincente was super confident in exchanging, taking big shots, just gritting down, biting down in the mouthpiece, walking forward, putting on that pressure, getting in your grill, forcing you in a firefight, and overwhelming you. That used to be his game. He would be willing to take damage to give damage. He was like a zombie. But ever since Jeff Neal kind of turned him into a vegetable and gave him a brain hemorrhage with those uppercuts, Vincente has just been fighting with less confidence. The way he fought RDA is not how I would have seen him fighting RDA if he would have fought him like a few years ago. I think a few years ago, Luque would try to strike with RDA and knock him the fuck out. But this time, we're seeing a cautious Vincente who's trying to be strategic and smart, but he sucks at it. That's just not his game. I mean, it worked against RDA because RDA at welterweight just isn't any good and RDA is washed up. But he tried to fight that way against Buckley. It wasn't really working. And then he sold. He shot for a takedown that was failed. He pulled guard, and then he just shelled up and gave up and got TKO'd on the ground. So this fight is all up to Vincente Luque at the end of the day. If Luque can have a resurgence if, let's say, he's like seen a sports psychologist and he can get his shit together, then he should beat Thembo Gorimbo. This was supposed to be Nick Diaz, which I was going to pick Luque to beat Nick. This fight, I don't know. I'm just going to say Themba is going to win because Luque is washed. I think Themba might be able to just out-grapple him in this fight. High takedown accuracy, does have good grappling, and I think he might just stick to it, and I don't think we're going to see that same aggressive Luque that we're used to seeing. And I think Themba might emulate a similar game plan to what Belal Muhammad did when he beat him a couple of years ago. But I hope Luque wins. I really hope he wins, but I just don't know. And then Anthony Smith versus Dominick Reyes, the Devastator. Lionheart versus the Devastator. One of the best fights of the card. The man who beat Jon Jones, Dominick Reyes, versus the man who could have beat Jon if he actually accepted the DQ win. So both men have history with Jon Jones. Anthony Smith on paper should win this fight because on paper, no one beats him, right? If he had Ryan Spann's like athleticism, no one would beat him and he would beat Ryan Spann, right? I'm just joking. I'm literally mocking the cope that Anthony Smith speaks with. Whenever he talks, he always copes over his losses and makes a bunch of nonsensical excuses. Like he just has this whole like, if my uncle had a vagina, he'd be my aunt type of cope, you know what I mean? Or if my aunt had a dick, she'd be my uncle kind of cope, you know what I mean? That's the kind of cope he does. But okay, this is a fight. Jokes aside, I don't even know if I said that terminology right. Sorry about that. You can let me know in the comment section. I should not be saying this on YouTube. Like sometimes my mom watches these videos. It's kind of embarrassing. But anyway, Reyes versus Smith, that's a fight that I've been looking forward to. That's a fight that I've been wanting to see for a long time. I've been wanting this fight. I've been calling for this fight since Anthony Smith was on the come up in his light heavyweight career, like in his early 205 career, before he got the title shot at Jon Jones, and when Dominick Reyes like massacred Jared Cannonier and Ovin St. Preux back to back. This was the fight I wanted to happen. But sure enough, Anthony got the title shot against Jon Jones. Reyes kept working until he got his title shot against Jon Jones. And now here we are. They're fighting a few years later. And the timing of this matchup is so interesting because they're both at like an opposite career trajectory as opposed to when I wanted them to fight initially, like 2018, 2019, when both guys were like all the way in their primes together. That's when I really wanted to see them fight. But now it's like Reyes, he had a bit of a downslide post Jon Jones, but now he's kind of back. He had that knockout win over Dustin Jacoby, whereas now Anthony Smith, he's on a huge decline. I mean, he got outstruck by Roman Dolidze. He lost to Roman Dolidze. Anthony Smith is trash now. He not only lost to Roman, it's not like Roman Dolidze out-grappled him. He outstruck Roman Dolidze. How terrible are you to let Roman outstrike you? And then before that, he beat Vitor Petrino based off Vitor's low IQ mistake. And then who did he fight before that? He had another loss. He had Khalil Rountree. And then before that, he barely beat Ryan Spann, who he already finished before. And he would have lost to Ryan in the rematch if Ryan wasn't, stupid. Before that, he got washed by Johnny Walker, washed by Ankalaev. Yeah, his last few fights just have not been looking good. I mean, should I count down his track record since 2022? So he had that loss to Ank, the loss to Walker, and then the loss to Khalil, and then the loss to Roman. So 4 losses, and then how many wins in the last few years did he have? The win over Spann, the win over Petrino. So this guy's like 2-4 in like his last 6 fights and like the last 2 years. Now, Dominick Reyes' track record isn't any better. I think Dominick Reyes is like, he's 1-4 in his last 5, but I don't know. If you can't outstrike Roman Dolidze, you're not beating Dominick Reyes on the feet. Dominick showed in that last fight, he still has his speed and athleticism. He still has his footwork. He still has his athletic ability, his counter striking. Anthony Smith is very flat-footed. He's much slower than he used to be. He's very slow at covering distance and closing the distance. So if he does try to press Dominick Reyes, Reyes is going to have a very easy time playing the matador, pivoting out of the way, and timing one of his slow punches and landing that counter straight left. I think the only thing he has to worry about in this fight for Reyes is his chin, really. Because Dominick got his chin taken not really by Jan Blachowicz, who TKO'd him. Yuri took his chin. Yuri took his chin because after that, he got slept by Ryan Spann, who he shouldn't have got slept by. So it's possible Smith, if he does touch his chin, because Smith does have decent power, he could knock out Dominick Reyes. If he can get him in the pocket and beat him to the punch, connect before Reyes can time a counter, he can potentially hurt Reyes. It's very possible. But again, he's too slow. He's too slow. I don't think he'll be able to close the distance fast enough to land anything. He won't be accurate enough. Smith used to have a very fast jab 1-2, a dangerous left hook, which I just don't see that anymore. Where again, Reyes looked like vintage Reyes in his last fight. I think Reyes is back. He's rejuvenated, and I think Smith is the perfect fight that's going to get him his second win in a row and make him undefeated in 2024. So I'm going to say Dominick Reyes will win this fight. Now that he's got his confidence and his mojo back, I got Reyes by probably TKO. I want to say a decision because Smith does have toughness. But I mean, Khalil was able to finish the job. I think Reyes can finish him too. I'm going to say Reyes will piece him up, catch the slower Smith coming in. Yeah, he'll probably knock him out in the first or second. But yeah, Reyes is my pick. Now, into the main card, Doo Ho Choi versus Nate Landwehr. I want to pick Choi. It's a tempting pick. It really is. But Choi is not the same Choi of old. It's not 2016 anymore. And since then, this guy just has not been looking good. He's like 1-3 in his last 4. He lost to Cub, had that war against Swanson in 2016, got KO'd by Jeremy Stevens, got KO'd by Charles Jourdain, which is kind of embarrassing. I don't think 2016 Choi is getting knocked out by Jourdain. I don't think Charles Jourdain is that good. I'm sorry. And then his comeback fight, he had a draw. I forgot who it was against. And then he won his last fight by TKO against, who's that guy that, I'm going to Google his last opponent. I swear, I remember the guy. I know who it is. I know the guy. Oh, Bill Algeo. I was going to pull out my phone. He beat Bill Algeo, which is actually a pretty decent win. But Nate Landwehr is pretty tough. He's pretty durable. He's got good pressure. His wrestling is pretty decent. Choi can be pressured. He can be overwhelmed a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, if Doo Ho Choi can't chin him, he'll probably lose by a decision just from being out-pressured and being taken down. But this should be an exciting fight to open up the main card. This should be a banger, but I'm not going to go over this one very long. Nate Landwehr is my pick, but I'm hoping Choi wins. And oh my gosh, Kron Gracie. Ugh. Oh, why did I pull up his stats? My bad. Okay. I'm not going to waste my time with this fight. Terrible fight. No one asked for this fight. This shouldn't be on the freaking main card. Of all opponents, why is Mitchell even fighting Kron? Why is he even getting a second chance? His last fight was horrible. He was butt scooting on the canvas desperately against Charles Jourdain. That was an embarrassing fight. I had my family over for like a birthday party for one of my family members. I'm not going to specify who. They only stayed for one UFC fight, and it was Jourdain versus Gracie. And I was embarrassed. The one fight that they saw was that fight. So, and he's not beating Bryce Mitchell. Mitchell is better than him on the feet. They say Mitchell shouldn't engage the grappling with him, but honestly, why not? Bryce Mitchell's got great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, better wrestling. Mitchell can win this fight in any which way he wants. He's not getting knocked out by Kron. Kron has no power. He's no Ilya. He's no Emmett. No power. Terrible striking. He's not out-wrestling Bryce. All he has is Jiu-Jitsu. One-dimensional bum. Mitchell's going to win this fight. Honestly, Mitchell might even sub him. He might bully him on the ground, and he might sub him to prove a point. That's my prediction. All right. Alexander Volkov versus Ciryl Gane. Man, very good fight. Very good fight. Kind of a pointless rematch because Gane already beat him before. He beat him by decision in 2021 in the Apex. But it was a tough fight, actually. It was actually a very difficult fight. Competitive fight, but Gane was just a little bit faster. His footwork was better. He was a step ahead with his speed and his footwork and his accuracy. His combos were better, and he was just a little bit more elusive. So Volkov wasn't really able to get to him. But Volkov was able to land some leg kicks, and Volkov has improved since this fight. His only loss since was to Tom Aspinall, the interim heavyweight champion. Since then, Volkov's been on a hell of a streak. But the streak he's been on was against favorable matchups. Volkov bounced back from his losses to Gane and Tom to beat guys like Rosenstrike. Who else did he beat after the Rosenstrike fight? He fought Rakhmanov, favorable matchup, slow, plotty heavyweight. Rosenstrike is a slow, plotty, fat heavyweight. Not really fat, but, he's got pudgy sides. And then who else? Then he fought... I might be skipping over some opponents. Remind me if I'm forgetting. Tai Tuivasa. Washed Tai, but Tai, fat, slow. He was athletic. Still kind of is athletic, but fat. He's the kind of heavyweight that, Volkov matches up perfectly against. And then he had that fight against... Did he have another fight before... Sergey Pavlovich? I just want to look it up right now. Alexander Volkov. I could switch tabs on my computer, but I don't want to mislead you guys on his track record on who this guy's beaten. So Sergey Pavlovich. Okay, so Tai Tuivasa. Okay, so I'm getting everything correct. Sergey Pavlovich is a beast, but no footwork, plods forward, very slow. He's the kind of heavyweight that makes Volkov look good. Volkov is able to play the matador against those kinds of heavyweights. Plus, Volkov has become Swolkov. He's put on more size, more muscle, so it's a lot harder to kind of bully him around and ragdoll him now. But he's tall, long, and he uses his height and his reach very effectively, and it's hard to get to him. But the kind of heavyweights that he's going to struggle with are always going to be the faster, more athletic heavyweights with the footwork and head movement of a guy like Aspinall or Gane. So because of that, I'm going to have to go with Ciryl Gane in this fight. Styles make fights. Volkov does have a chance. He did have a lot of success in that last fight, but I just think Ciryl Gane is better. The only way Gane loses this fight if he's just not on his best night. If Gane shows up unmotivated, not hungry, or overlooks Volkov, Volkov has a chance, Especially coming in as the guy who already has a loss to Gane. He's going to really want to get this back, but I just think Gane is still going to be faster. His footwork is going to be better. And because of his style, he's not going to chase a knockout against Volkov. He's just going to stick and move, hit Volkov, and then make Volkov miss when Volkov tries to return, out leg kick him, land better combinations, and just be a little more elusive. So Gane could finish him this time, but I'm going to say Ciryl Gane is going to win another unanimous decision, but in a 3-rounder, and probably win 29-28. Or maybe 30-27. I feel like in the last fight, Volkov won the first round. But then Gane kind of got better as the fight went on. And I think it's just going to go exactly like the first fight. But Volkov could do it. He's yet to prove that he could beat the Aspinalls or the Ganes of the world. But whoever wins this fight could potentially be in line to fight Aspinall if John Jones retires and vacates. Now, moving on now to the co-main event. Ian Machado Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmanov. I made up my mind on this fight. I know who I'm picking to win. I'm going to go with Shavkat to win this fight. Straight to the point. I think Ian Garry is very talented. I think he's very good. His striking is good. He's elusive, great footwork, great boxing, great kickboxing. Ian Machado Garry can also grapple well too. He can. Hold on a second. I just need to see like what stance. I need to see which fight stance Ian Garry fights from. I think he's like, oh, they're orthodox. Okay, sorry about that. I shouldn't have pulled up my phone mid breakdown. But Ian is good. His grappling is good. His takedown defense should be better than Wonderboy, his takedown defense should be better than Wonderboy's, who was Shavkat's last opponent. However, for as technical as Ian is, for as good as his footwork is, for as elusive as he is, for as smart as he is too, he fights very smart and strategic. I just think Shavkat Rakhmanov has too much of a dog in him. I feel like his grit is what's going to win him this fight. Ian has an advantage when it comes to his height, but not with his reach. Shavkat has a 3-inch reach advantage despite being 6'1". So I feel like that's going to help him in a lot of the boxing, like in a lot of the close in-tight exchanges. That's going to help him. Ian Machado Garry was able to dance around Jeff Neal, keep him on the outside, not let Jeff Neal get close. And against MVP, he was able to mix it up, use his grappling. And against Neil Magny, he was just able to abuse him with his leg kicks pretty much and do he just did what he wanted to Magny, basically. And then he knocked out D-Rod with a head kick. So he's very good, very smart fighter. I give him all kinds of credit, and he does have a chance. But what he's been able to do to his other opponents, I can't see him doing that to Shavkat. If the striking gets difficult or risky, I don't see him out-wrestling Rakhmanov. And I don't think Rakhmanov is going to let Ian Garry sit at range and just pick him apart like that, like Jeff Neal did. I feel like Shavkat, even if he is struggling, he's going to be able to get to Ian Garry one way or another. He's going to constantly put pressure on Garry, try to walk him against the cage. Gary's going to move side to side. He's going to try to pick at him with jabs, teep kicks. He's going to try to chop at the legs, land knees up the middle every time Shavkat engages. But Rakhmanov is just going to keep coming. He's going to keep coming forward. And I think he's going to be able to connect on Ian Garry better than Jeff Neal was able to. And the way he was able to beat Jeff, honestly, people underrate Shavkat based off the Neal performance. Honestly, I was more impressed by Shavkat against Jeff than Ian Machado. Because Shavkat showed he can take risks. He can take damage. He showed that he has a good chin. I remember before that fight, people were spamming highlight clips of him getting dropped on the regional scene. He showed an iron chin, that he can stay in the pocket with the most dangerous strikers and keep coming like the Terminator and land his own punishing shots. And he was able to finish Jeff Neal. And I think he's going to be able to finish Ian Machado Garry. So what I think is going to happen in this fight, I think round one, Ian Machado is going to kind of outstrike Rakhmanov a little bit. But Rakhmanov is going to stay patient and composed. I don't think Machado's shots are really going to affect Rakhmanov. I think Rakhmanov is going to pace himself knowing it's a 5-rounder. Round two, I think they're going to open up a little bit more. I think Rakhmanov is going to get a little bit more aggressive. He's going to attempt a few more takedowns, which might get stuck, but he doesn't need to get them. He can literally just get in the clinch through failed takedowns and just hold Ian against the fence, and basically out-clinch him, dirty box him in the clinch. And then I see him wearing down Machado in the clinch, round two. And then round three, here's where it's going to get really interesting. I think that's when the tides are really going to turn in Shavkat's favor. I think Shavkat's really going to start to pick up momentum on the feet. He's really going to be able to make Ian uncomfortable in close range. And I just think Ian's just not going to be able to keep Rakhmanov off of him. And I think the power of Rakhmanov is going to be too much. Garry got dropped by Song Kanon, and if Song can drop you, I imagine Rakhmanov can drop him too. But Rakhmanov will better capitalize. So I just think Rakhmanov is better. He's more dangerous, and he's got finishing potential. And Ian can only win this fight by decision. But I can't see him winning by sub. I can't see him winning by knockout. And over 5 rounds, I just can't see him avoiding a dogfight for long. I just think it's a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before Shavkat gets to him. So I think Rakhmanov wins. I'm going to say 3rd round TKO. Or maybe he drops and subs Ian. Or maybe he wobbles Ian and Ian shoots for a desperation takedown and Rakhmanov like guillotine chokes him. That's what I'm going to say. Rakhmanov 3rd round finish. But yeah, this fight, this is the real main event in my opinion. This is the fight that we all want to see. This should be for the interim title, but I get it. Belal just fought 5 months ago. He'll be back soon. Winner of this will fight Belal. I mean, if Ian wins, he might have a good chance against beating Belal Muhammad. Or at beating Belal Muhammad. Because if you're beating Shavkat, Rakhmanov, that's no joke. This is undefeated versus undefeated. Someone's always got to go. Like, whoever wins this fight, I might favor to beat Muhammad. Like, if Shavkat wins this fight, he further solidifies himself as a threat to the title, and he will have further earned his title shot. Whereas if Ian wins, he will have beaten the boogeyman of the division. So I can't wait to find out what happens, but I'm gonna go with Rakhmanov. And then the main event, Pantoja versus Asakura. I think this fight is going to be a banger. I know I complained about this fight being the main event. It's just because I don't think Pantoja is that big of a name. And this just isn't a big enough fight to carry this pay-per-view. But the card is stacked. And you know what? Pantoja always delivers. He always comes to bang. Every single fight, he always puts on that relentless pressure. Well-rounded fighter. He can strike. He's got good kicks. He's got good power. He's a brawler with good grappling. He always makes it a war in his fights. His fight with Moreno to win the title was very entertaining. His fight with Royval was a little bit boring because of all that grappling, but he did what he needed to do to win that fight because Brandon is very dangerous on the feet. But his last fight against Urseg was very exciting. I mean, he should have been able to dominate that fight and finish him just based off what Kara France was able to do. I mean, you're struggling with a number 9 ranked guy, but Pantoja is a very good fighter. He holds like a win over almost every ranked opponent or every ranked fighter on the flyweight roster. And he's kind of cleaned out the division, and that's why he's getting Kai Asakura in Kai's UFC debut. Kai Asakura is a very talented striker. He's got knockout power. But my issue with Kai is this is his first UFC fight, and fighting a world champion on your UFC debut, I don't care if he's a former champ from Rizin, your UFC debut is against the champion, Alexandre Pantoja, someone with the experience of Pantoja. Pantoja's got way more experience than Kai Asakura, overall in MMA, I believe, and in the UFC. He's been 5 rounds many times. He's had many hard 5-round fights against top-level fighters. This guy's beating Brandon Moreno 3 times, Royval twice. Urseg is not really that big of a win, but I mean, Urseg is pretty dangerous. He has a win over Kai Kara France. He didn't beat Davis and Figueiredo, but he stood up to his power, didn't get finished, gave a good showing in that fight. Yeah, and I mean, okay, Kai, he beat Manel Kopp, but it was a split decision, and then Kopp got that fight back in blood. He beat Juan Archuleta, not that impressive of a win. And then his last loss was like 2 fights ago, not that long ago. So he lost to someone, I believe, lesser than Pantoja. Someone who I don't even believe, if I've never heard of this guy, I don't think he's on Pantoja's level. It may sound like a casual take, but that guy who beat Kai, I don't think is Pantoja level good. So I'm going to go with Alexandre Pantoja based off the fact that he's just been here longer. And I feel like he has more ways to win. And for as powerful as Asakura is, Pantoja has an uncrackable chin. Hard to knock out. And maybe he is due for a knockout loss. But if anyone's knocking him out, I don't know if Asakura is going to be the man to knock him out. He could, but I just don't see it. And then as far as his striking goes, his striking is better. Asakura's striking is better than Pantoja's. But Pantoja has the grappling threat. He has got very good wrestling. He was able to take down Brandon Moreno at will like 6 to 8 times, and Albazi wasn't even able to get a takedown on Moreno. So that just shows how good Pantoja's wrestling is. Even Royval has shown decent takedown defense, but Pantoja was still able to not destroy him, but control the fight with the grappling. So Pantoja could have success on the feet with his wild style and just being able to walk through punches and land some punches of his own. But if the striking does get too tough, he can mix it up and grapple and win that way. But I don't know if Kai Asakura is knocking him out either. So it doesn't help Kai's case that Pantoja's tough and then can out-wrestle him. So yeah, I'm going to say Pantoja wins. I'm going to say maybe a decision. I think it'll be a war. I think Kai will give a good showing. He'll do better than people are expecting. It'll be a fun fight, but I think Pantoja is going to show his championship experience, his championship medal, and he's going to show us once again why right now, currently, he is the best flyweight in the world, and Asakura just isn't ready. Pantoja is kind of like a flyweight Dricus du Plessis, because he's got that toughness. His striking is very sloppy but effective, and he's got power as well, but he can also take you down and submit you. And even when it looks like he's tired, he can fight through the fatigue, and he's still dangerous. So even if Kai can, drag him past the first couple of rounds, I don't really think it's going to matter. Pantoja will still be able to get his takedowns. And also, this is the UFC. This is a different set of rules. In Rizin, you could throw like knees to a downed opponent. If this was under Rizin rules, maybe Kai would have a better chance because he could maybe knee Pantoja off a failed takedown when Pantoja's down. But in the UFC, he's not going to be able to do that. So, yeah, Pantoja's my pick, and still. But part of me kind of wants Asakura to win, just because I think it would be funny, and it would kind of shake the division up. Plus, that's history. The first ever Japanese UFC champion, the first ever fighter to win a UFC belt on his or her debut. That would be huge, but I don't think it's going to happen. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know your predictions of these fights. Who do you got winning in all these matchups? Like and subscribe, and peace out.